Thanks for being here, Jill.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's so fun. So fun to see you, friend.
I know. It's been about almost 20 years as we were comparing notes.
That's right. That's right. So we're going to start with our first question that we love to kick these off with, which is we're going to get into our little time machine. We're going to go back a little bit and we're going to ask you, tell us about how you were feeling, what you were thinking about, what you were considering in your future as a high school senior.
It's a great question. Well, first of all, great to be with you all here. As I mentioned, Maggie we've known each other about 20 years when you were leading NABO, and Ellie, we've gotten to know each other when you were a business broker, and
yes,
you are now CEO of a company. So
yes.
Congratulations. I was 17, and I wanted something bigger. I wanted to be in a positive environment. I wanted to have that big university experience. No one in my family had been to college, so that was a big milestone that I wanted to accomplish. I was competing with my brother who was getting his engineering degree at University of Cincinnati, which, by the way, I did graduate before he did.
Nice.
He did get his MBA though. I was in a small town, so I really wanted to explore. I was very independent, and so I was ready to do something new. What's ironic being here today is very full circle. If you would have asked me at 17, I would have been in radio and broadcasting. I was on my school news, morning announcements, sports commentating for some of the soccer games. And so that's what I thought I would do, because those were some of the classes I was in at the time. And but at the time, at 17, the closest thing was Western Kentucky University. And that was 3 hours away. And at 17, that seemed so far away. And so I thought, well, I better find a really good business school. And that's kind of what then brought me to Louisville, going to the College of Business.
So what small town was this?
Cold Spring, Kentucky.
Okay.
Northern Kentucky. About an hour and a half from here. My parents still live in the same house I grew up in.
All right. And so after school, when you graduated, where did you begin your career?
So I actually started in banking at 18. So as I mentioned, moved here at 17, thought business sounded like the right avenue. I did have a friend of my brother who was in finance at U of L's College of Business. And a lot of folks were going to UK. And, to be clear, I never looked good in royal blue. So I needed to find...
That is hard for me to believe. That is really hard that you look bad.
Yeah,
exactly.
And all kidding aside, I was ready to kind of create my own path. And no one I really knew was going to be going here other than the person I mentioned. And so College of Business requires you to have an internship. And, you don't have to do that until junior or senior year, but I'm a planner. And I thought, well, what the heck? I'll just jump right in now and find something. And so at 18, I thought, there's certain attributes that I've always thought were interesting about finance. I mean, money moves the world around. I was always a very well-planned person around finance. I had to put myself through college and pay my way. And, heck, I was raising capital back then. I was, getting my scholarships, finding student loans, which I walked away with very minimal student loans, knew I had to work. And so anyway, I moved here to go to the University of Louisville, get the banking job at 18, and I really never looked back.
So did you start off in banking like all the way down in telling, or what did that look like?
I started as a part-time teller, learning kind of the ropes, I remember one time, somebody bringing in their mortgage payment and making sure I needed to apply it to escrow. And I thought, at 18, what in the world is escrow? But of course, now I know what all that means. And so I started as a teller, worked my way through management, and I've been in wholesale mortgage. I've then moved into the small business world and then commercial banking. And here I am in leadership.
I grew up in the automotive business, and I grew up on the front lines, like you're talking about, answering phones, washing cars. How does the teller experience still inform you in a way? Do you still think, are there moments you're like, I remember what that's like. We need to make sure X, that we do this or that.
If anyone in my role could ever really learn the insides of the bank, that role was an incredibly important one, because you're dealing with all different types of folks at the teller line: consumers, business owners, folks that are powers of attorney, you name it. And so you're really getting that experience. It's still a relationship business, but you're looking at a lot of different transactions. And I remember even in the beginning, 25 years ago, merchant services really wasn't a thing. And so companies were coming in to say, can you help us understand how to take card? Like, what does that even mean? So,
Mm-hmm.
you're at the front line trying to sift, like, where do you take these people, right? So it was a really interesting experience. And it's one of the hardest jobs because you are locked into that branch from 8 to 5 and, you're sometimes running multiple teller drawers and making sure that everything reconciles correctly. So it was a really good, important job to have. And I'd never regret having that experience.
Yeah. Well, and you went all the way from teller to where you are now, and the congratulations are in order because you were just promoted.
Thank you.
I want to make sure I get the title correct. You're leading the Kentucky commercial banking team for JPMorganChase, and you're over the Louisville office. And so how does that feel?
I'm excited and humbled because I have an excellent team already. I'm incredibly proud to be at the greatest firm in the world, JPMorganChase, and also really thankful. You don't get to a role like this without having a really good support system and people investing in you. And that's both personal, professional, my family, my husband, my mother-in-law. I mean, my kids sacrifice a lot. And then just those really great mentors and trailblazers like Maggie, who I watched lead 20 plus years ago. Phoebe Wood, as many folks know, she's been a great mentor to me, and just all the bosses along the way and teammates that you learn from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have gotten to know you actually through some of your teammates, and I have heard many times what a huge supporter you are of them as people and human beings, and how you've brought some other women into the Chase world. And so those things that you're saying, I mean, that is something that we know about you. So you've done just a fantastic job, and that's probably why you have grown into the role that you all the way are in now.
Banking is intimidating to me, and from the perspective of like, I don't think I could ever work in a bank. I can barely write out a check properly. So I'm just not my thing. What do you think it is about you in particular, your particular natural aptitudes that made you such a good fit in banking, that you were like, I'm going to stay for my whole career?
I think I'm different. I'm not your typical banker. Number one, I bring a lot of, and listen, if there's bankers out there that feel like, well, I do that too. Well, forgive me, but I feel like I come in with a different lens, especially within the commercial bank, right? I had that retail experience. I had mortgage experience. I bring a lot of energy. As I mentioned, I wanted to be in radio and broadcasting, and I have a really creative side to me too. So I'm very creative. I'm very empathetic. I grew up around family businesses too. And, just the fact that you said it's intimidating. When I talk to folks, I want it to be in layman's terms. I wanted to make it understandable. So I try to, like we're going to talk banking lingo, I want to make sure people understand what we're talking about. Very consultative. I'm a very direct person. I don't beat around the bush. I'd rather do a quick no and refer somebody to somewhere else. So I just feel like I bring like a really big differentiator. And so that's, I think, helped me in my career to keep excelling. And I've loved it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think that a lot of people feel what Maggie's feeling, which is that like level of intimidation around it. And I think it's more because they don't know how to navigate the banking system. They don't know who they should be talking to. And even really what is banking and what a banker does. It's just such a broad term. And so a lot of our people might be, let's pretend like we're in the aspiring entrepreneur or the newer entrepreneur seat right now, and we'll kind of work our way up. And so talk to us about, what does that look like to work with a banker, or when should they be involving one if they're new in business?
Well, number one, I think it's because it's a relationship and trust business, just like any personal relationship you have. Starting the relationship really before you need something too. And then you might say, well, where do they start? Well, number one, they can always connect with me. We'll talk about that in the end about how to get connected. And I can always get them to the right place. We have 40 banking centers across Kentucky and Indiana. So go in there, say, you heard Jill Wilcox. I want to get to her. How do we figure out how to start this? And again, we can help navigate. The branch can typically help you navigate as well too. So start now and introduce yourself, even if it's like, hey, I've got this business idea, because we also are great connectors. We could connect you to some of these really great community organizations that are out there, like Amplify or Awesome Inc. or, the Association for Corporate Growth and places like that really want folks to come in and have that connectivity to capital conversations or just where to begin.
I don't think people think about that and how it connects into the broader community often, especially now that banking has become so digital. They might not be really thinking beyond opening up an account and just like managing the money themselves, how they might utilize a banker, or even with, when you say it is a relationship business, it almost might feel like, how does that, and whereas you don't know what you need until you've needed it. And I'm at the point now in owning a business that does over $1 million of revenue every year that you actually do have to ask your banker questions every once in a while. And we have loans, and there's other things that might cause someone to interact with banking.
My father, of course, was a business owner, and I worked for him. And when I started my business, he was very much into coaching me about working with banks. And he was always like, from day one, you find your banker, right? It might be your branch manager at first, or you might get a commercial banker, that kind of a thing. And I think that that's something I've seen large businesses who don't have a banker that they have a relationship with. So you talk about relationships, that is a relationship. So if I'm a brand new business owner, let's say, just started a business, really don't have much to talk about with someone, tell me why it's important for them to go ahead and go to their bank, walk in and say, could you give me the name of a banker? And then how do they build the relationship? What tips would you give them?
It goes back to like, what are their needs? So depending on where they are, if they're brand new and they've just started up, it could be as simple as opening accounts. But being a regulated entity, we have to know what the company does. We need to know our customer for onboarding purposes. So we love to talk about understanding the business model, how you make revenue, how you're collecting, how you're making payments. Do you need an international relationship? Those types of things are all really, really important so that we can then solution to the best of our abilities. So just starting, and it takes time to get to know companies and businesses. So it could take a couple meetings or two to really understand it. So that's why it's really important, because we just have to, and I think vice versa, you've got to make sure it's a good fit personality wise for the right banker. Who might have, there might be somebody that has industry specialization in, say, some type of manufacturing facility that we might bring in another banking teammate that has more expertise in that.
Yeah. And I would say for sure, take the initiative to say, I need a different banker. Maybe this one I don't feel connected with, because I think that for the bank, you want the best match. That commercial banker, if you're not happy, there's always someone else that they might be able to work with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have a very broad team and people with different expertise. So welcome that.
Yeah. As we think about how big JPMorganChase is and the different types of places that someone might interact with, can you kind of talk about what that looks like for someone, and what are the different teams or aspects of JPMorganChase that someone might interact with in their business journey?
In Kentucky, we work with close to 1 million consumer clients already. It's a touch under that. We work with 46,000 small business clients. And, so we want to keep growing that. And so you might walk into one of our 40 banking centers to, if we're talking business right now, work with just setting up accounts. And so there are teammates that can help on the small business side, startup side. But I would say if you are venture backed, you're high growth, we encourage the banking centers to bring those into the commercial bank, because we have experienced bankers within the commercial bank that work with high growth venture backed companies. The small business team, as I mentioned, the 46,000 clients we already have. These are companies that, are maybe a little bit more simplistic, not a ton of complexity yet. We have a tremendous banking team across Kentucky that can really help support them with loans and treasury management. So just think that might be a lingo that people don't understand. It's really cash in, cash out. How do you manage your financial reporting?
Right. If you have a lot of cash in the bank, where should it be sitting?
Helping you think about a liquidity strategy. And then once it gets a little bit more dynamic and complex, companies growing kind of that medium size, our commercial banking team will come in and really kind of, again, help understand what are the company's strategic priorities and objectives, what kind of needs do they have. And so we would bring in, there's so many partners I'm going to miss here, but we have experts in interest rate risk management, foreign exchange risk management. We have teammates that help provide financial literacy for the employees of that company, if that's of interest. The treasury management team. So really understanding the cash flow in and outs of the company, helping them really navigate the bank navigate their money across the nation or the world. We JP Morgan move $10 trillion a day. And so making sure we're doing that efficiently and effectively in the most valuable form. So gone are the days of paper, trying to move them to as digital as possible so that really helps maximize their value. And then on the payment side, if they're pushing money out, helping them really think about a strategy. It's very consultative on how do you extend your days payable outstanding and then keep money in the bank to, earn dollars there. So those are things we really help them on. And then you really can't outgrow us either. I mean, we have folks within the investment bank that we bring in if a company is trying to go public, raise capital, equity specifically, escrow services. So those are just a few examples. I'm sure I'm missing many things, but just giving you an idea.
There's just so much there. And I think that the point here is that people should view their banker and that relationship with that person as a connection point. And they're probably not utilizing that person right now, if they have one, to its fullest extent, because you all are all day, every day in the community. You have connections out in the community to other service providers and connections point inside of your company for things that they might not have even thought of. And so if you're not regularly having a relationship with your banker, you're probably missing out on strategic resources that are available. And I honestly, even listening to you, thinking like, there's probably things that I should be talking to my Chase banker about.
Thank you for being a client.
Yes, we should be more of a client, but I'll get there one day.
You should. I mean, I'd be curious about what you think of my dad's advice. So my dad's advice was always like, I got my first line of credit, and he was like, use it, right? First of all, get the most you can. He said, get the most credit you can because you don't know when you're going to need it. And if you get in desperate straits, the bank is going to be less likely to be like, oh, you're feeling desperate? Let's think carefully about whether we're going to give you more money. And so he said, get as much as you can up front. And then he said, use it. Even if you may not feel like you need to use your line of credit, your bank has to make money. If you want to be a good partner, use your line of credit and pay it down. Use it, pay it down. And he even was like, go into the bank, which my bank was, right there. He said, go into the bank, see your banker and say, great news. I'm here to pay down my line of credit. Let them know what you're doing and have a relation. I mean, I have a relationship with my banker now because we've always just stayed in close touch. And I think that helps the banker. It helps you, but I also think it helps the banker when it's time for you to ask for something big. They have some history. They know you. What do you think of that advice?
I think liquidity is key, particularly in uncertain times. So having a line of credit plus what's cash in your bank is your liquidity. So you've got to have liquidity to run a business. And, from a working capital perspective, it's important. You may not have your receivables fully in yet, and you've got to make payroll. Well, you need people to pay. So
surprises happen in business, and you want to have that backup of like, oh, I can dip into this and use it.
But if there's a way to keep your banking team informed and letting them know how you're performing and revolving your line, I would love a client like that. So that's great. And I think that for those out there that are already clients that, have a great communicative relationship, are really great about just informing on like the monthly updates and quarterly updates. And sometimes, they don't have requirements always that they need to do that. Some do. And so I love when I get those great updates is when there's great news or even something they want to share, like, hey, we're working through this, but here's the expectation. That's a great relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. I think trust your banker, like, lean into it. So the age old question, I think, most, if not every single business owner has is, how do I grow my business? And I think as a business owner, I'm always thinking about, marketing or adding salespeople or product offering or whatever, social media or whatever. But how can a bank be helping business owners? How does a bank, if I'm a business owner and I come to my bank and say, help me grow, what are some of the tools that you guys would put on the table to help us?
Well, as a business leader, I want to grow too. So these are things that I think about. From a banking perspective, having a well-capitalized balance sheet, leveraging your balance sheet, super important. So we really try to sit down with financials, with the company to help understand their balance sheet alongside of them. We help them analyze, like I was mentioning before, how can you collect faster? How can you delay payables appropriately? How can you enhance that working capital, which in turn helps liquidity? which is something we talked about before. So we do working capital analysis with clients. We also help them with understanding how to appropriately leverage their balance sheet. Could they put, with the right amount of risk, put, dollars on their balance sheet that will allow them to acquire a company, to finance growth CapEx, so that they have something that's going to continue to grow their...
I'm going to grab one. Okay. Lingo word.
Oh.
Growth CapEx.
Yes.
CapEx was a word, and it's going to sound so silly, but I literally Googled this one. So tell them what CapEx is, because it becomes very obvious as soon as you say it.
Capital expenditures. But that's great. Sometimes we get into our banking lingo and we don't even mean it.
Right. Well, and capital expenditures tends to be the things that wouldn't hit your P&L typically. So think if you're like developing your software app, which I'm doing right now, you don't have to put that on your P&L. It could be on your balance sheet because it's not a recurring expense. It's a capital expense.
Operating expense. So if I'm a business owner who's like intimidated by even talking about a balance sheet, I know business owners who never look at their P&L. Like they just are like, look at their bank balance. They just look at their bank balance and like, oh, I can afford to do whatever. If I'm a business owner who's really just like, I don't even know how to talk about my balance sheet, is a banker a great place for them to get some of that basics education?
Absolutely. And I never be, at least with my team, don't be intimidated. We want to be helpful. We want to sit down with you and do exactly what Ellie just did. What did that mean? What is growth CapEx? Help us understand that. And so I think the only way you're going to learn is to sit down with somebody that knows exactly how your balance sheet can work for you. So leverage us. We certainly want to make sure we're educating. And look, we have these, we call them firepower analysis sometimes, but it's really a debt capacity analysis and helping a company understand, if you wanted to, you could borrow this much money and buy a company, finance equipment, and this would help in turn potentially grow your business.
And giving those ideas and that thought leadership is impressive and helpful in ways that, my own brain is like, let's get this recording done so that I can ask her like 4 questions that I don't know that should be recorded. But, I think that that's just a fantastic use of those resources. And thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. And there's 2 other things too. Again, I mentioned data. We have our own proprietary solution called Morgan Markets, which is our economic and research platform. So competitiveness is very important with growing. So we can help make sure you get the right data on just the industries and marketplace. And then the other piece of it is our really broad financial sponsor network. So what does that mean? Private equity, family offices, and we know that there's going to be trillions of dollars in transitions over the next 10 years. And so making sure you leverage us on trying to help you with that transition plan, selling to an ESOP, which I'll clarify is an employee stock owned company, selling to your management team, selling to potentially a financial sponsor or maybe a strategic. So, we love to have those kinds of conversations. They're very exploratory. And then we also can connect you to this great network of financial sponsors if that's of interest.
To kind of tie those 2 things together, one thing I was hoping to make sure people understood is that it is okay if you do not know. And there are lots of business owners who do millions of dollars in revenue a year who still don't feel comfortable with their P&L and their balance sheet, who don't feel comfortable, but they're just looking at their bank balance and they're embarrassed that somehow they got this far without knowing. And so they just go even more quiet and even more silent. And that's a great place to talk to and get that advice. And don't be afraid to not know and to ask people questions, because how else would you have learned? And that is a safe environment to ask someone that question and let them give you the education that you might feel like you might not know. Your banker's on your side. Your banker's on your team.
It's a great point.
Exactly.
If we all knew everything, we'd own an island and go live somewhere else, but we don't.
You all get to talk to business owners of various sizes all day, every day. And so you probably have a better pulse on what business owners right now are thinking about. What are they concerned about? What are they struggling with? What are growth opportunities? What are some of those things that come to mind when you think about those conversations that you've been having recently that we would love our entrepreneurs to know at a broader scale?
It's an uncertain time right now, right? And so I'd say we're hearing a lot about and we started the year off with a lot of optimism. So we do a pulse of the commercial bank twice a year. Started off very optimistic. I still think there's plenty of companies out there that are optimistic, but just with the uncertainty, most are taking a very cautious approach and just reestablishing their strategy. Maybe they're not going to go so hard one way or the other. So just kind of a wait and see. And so making sure that you have a really strong, well-capitalized balance sheet going into uncertain times like that is super important. Communicating with your banking team. I mean, we've contacted a lot of our clients just to say, what can we do to be helpful? What, is there anything, you need data on? Because we obviously have tons of data. So folks are taking a cautious approach and leveraging all their relationships as best as possible and staying focused on what their kind of core competencies are.
We're seeing that when I talk to other people as well. I'm in a Vistage CEO roundtable group, and the ones that are in like home services or like any sort of renovation, talking about people being more conservative with their spending right now and how that's impacting them. And so that makes sense that, because it's uncertain, there's some people who are being more conservative with how they're spending their money.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like there's stuff on the sidelines. In my business, I own a sign company, and we see it where we've written a lot of estimates, and normally we would be winning a bigger percentage than we are right now. And I think people are like, I'm going to need this. I'm just going to wait a little bit. I'm just going to hit pause for a minute. So we're seeing that little cautiousness. It's not terrible, but it's definitely there.
And then how does Chase support small businesses or even women business owners? I know that you all do a lot of really neat things for women business owners.
We, just locally, we try to have at least one thought leadership event a year that's dedicated around, like we were mentioning before, bringing ideas. We hosted the CEO of Equilibrium last year, who it's a wellness service that JPMorganChase employees get to take advantage of, but she was invested here. And so she loved Louisville. We brought her here and had her speak to a bunch of women C-suite folks. We also are the 100 Wise Women by Leadership Louisville's presenting sponsor. Maggie was a speaker, which she did great.
Thank you for your support of that program. I love that program.
And they always sell out. You always leave inspired. It's a great networking event, number one. And then, you get to learn and feel empowered leaving there. And so we get to host, 10 or so people there every quarter. And so if that's something y'all ever want to come be our guest. And then just like I mentioned, we're talent. We have a great team of female bankers as well as male bankers, but just making sure that we're bringing all qualified people to the table to maybe grow the team.
Awesome. Beyond just Jill as the leader of Chase and into what's next. You've accomplished this massive goal for yourself. Talk about you as a human being, where you're at, where you're feeling, and like vision. And it can be work related if you want, but I just want to know a little bit more about you as a human being, because I've gotten to have a sit next to you at lunch once and, have a share of coffee, and you're just an inspiring person. And I don't feel like I got to hear enough of just how cool you are.
Oh, well, I definitely want to get in the vision of what I'm going to do within JPMorganChase, but I love to travel. I can't wait to travel more, but I absolutely try to travel 2 to 3 times a year with my family and with my husband. We do a good job getting away once a year. So love traveling. I think something that really changed my life for the better. It was one of the hardest things in my life. Well, first of all, I'm a problem solver, and I love impact, purpose-driven work. I was co-chair of Canopy. For those, Canopy for a couple years, was one of the founding board members who's, really focused on helping for-profit businesses really be mission-driven impact and making a difference and helping Kentucky get on the map for good business. So that's something personally that kind of dovetailed nicely into my professional world. But I lost a brother in a car accident 20 plus years ago. And we helped, we took this horrible tragedy and miss him every day, but it changed my life. And we helped we really helped lobby for the first seatbelt law in Kentucky. And I think it was like 2005, 2006, which I'm sure that has saved so many lives. So I'm just one of those, like, we got to change the world while we're here kind of people. and we got to do it quickly.
You're bringing your whole self into everything that you do, and that makes it very special.
Yeah. And I think that's what has helped me be who I am, because I think we can do better. I think Kentucky has so many unique opportunities, Louisville specifically, but we've got to show up and we got to do it better, faster, stronger.
As you take this leadership helm, what is your vision? Tell us a little bit about what you see for your tenure in this incredible role.
We are already in a great spot foundationally. So kudos to the folks that have come before me. But we're ready to rev it up. We're here to accelerate. And like I mentioned, talent. So number one, talent. And you're nothing without your team. We already have an excellent team, a really diverse team, but I want to grow that. And so number one focus is making sure they're successful, our existing team, helping them develop where they want to go personally and professionally. Secondarily, want to grow the team. So we are actively recruiting, trying to find the right folks. And, we're going to grow the team here in Louisville, but I really want to grow the team more broadly out in the state. I want the state to have even more resources of commercial banking teammates out there. So we're making headway. Stay tuned for more updates. So talent's number one. Culture, I feel like I've hit on that a ton, but we are always focused on bettering our culture, bringing, our best selves to work. We've got a really collaborative team and we're doing all the fun things, but then we're also just high energy. How can we help business owners? How can we really help bolster Kentucky? How do we help support Kentucky businesses better? And even if we're not the right solution all the time, maybe there's other capital solutions. I mean, folks need to understand there's equity, there's capital that's debt, but then sometimes it's non-bank lending that we can connect folks to. So trying to make sure we're bringing the resources. So it's talent, it's culture, and it's supporting our business community.
That's amazing. And I think again, going back to your bank is a connection person inside and out, and reminding people of that point and driving it home. The number of people that you all know and things that you can connect people to is unending. You made a point about expanding the team into other parts of our state, and something that I'm personally really passionate about is small business acquisition. And part of the reason for the passion about business acquisition comes from my love of economic development and wanting to see our communities of all sizes thrive and not just our cities. And so I'm really excited to hear what you're doing there, because when we transition these businesses that have been in these communities to the next generation, we continue to let those communities thrive instead of letting those businesses leave those communities. And so I just am excited for that. What are you looking for in a person? Say you've got a young person that is, 18 or, coming out of college. Who should we be pointing in your direction? Our listeners come in all shapes and sizes. And while most of them are entrepreneur focused, sometimes they need that first thing that is I had jobs before I decided to be the entrepreneur. And I think that I have learned in a next life what you do is actually a really good fit for my personality type. And so what is that? Who are you looking for? How do we send to you? Yeah, thank you.
Somebody that's incredibly curious, passionate about their work. And and it ties back to, are you passionate about your community? Because you can make an impact economically with a city, a state, when you have resources of a bank. Somebody that's, competitive, and we're super competitive. We have fun too. Obviously, you have to have that business financial acumen, and we can teach it. We have incredible training programs. We teach risk management. We teach all the, treasury lingo and helping them understand how working capital works and all of that. So we have great training, but, having some interest in finance, in treasury. So those are kind of some key things, but competitive, hungry, curious,
high energy,
Yeah. I mean,
ambitious.
I love high energy, ambitious, never meets a stranger. That's where most of our bankers have been incredibly successful.
Okay.
And how would we find you? Where are we, we're having this conversation. Obviously not everyone needs to come to talk directly to you, but as our listeners are thinking, wow, we need to go work with JPMorganChase, and now that Jill is amazing. Where do they connect in?
First of all, you're hilarious. So I'd say LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn, Jill T. Wilcox or Jill Wilcox, JPMorganChase. Any of the 40 banking centers you could walk in to say, I want to meet Jill. And I want them to. If they don't know where to go, I'll ensure they get to the right place and the right banker. But I'd say LinkedIn's probably a great start.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love a LinkedIn.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate the conversation that you've given us and the education, because I think that this is something that people feel intimidated and it doesn't need to be. I also think that it's something that's super underutilized.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, this has been fun. It went too fast. So thank you for having me. And I'm proud of what you've done, and you threw yourself in, and you're already having tremendous success. And Maggie, just thank you for being here and being not only a women business owner, but a trailblazer and an advocate. And so kudos to what you're doing with Renegade.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll see you soon.
I'll
see you out
see you all
somewhere.
very soon.